Hey guys, and welcome back to A Gamer's Eden. I'm Tim,
I'm Matt.
and this is our Dungeons and Dragons series where we talk about a really freaking fun role-playing game and play Shadow of Mordor because orcs and swords and fantasy and stuff, it kind of matches. Anyway, if you're watching this, that means you probably watched episode 1, found our insight into Dungeons and Dragons incredibly valuable, insight you could find nowhere else. We're now here, eagerly waiting with bated breath for episode 2, where we continue our discussion about certain topics from the game. I think that's a fair assumption, don't you think so, Matt?
I tuned out when you started complimenting.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Very fair. Anyway, in case you missed episode 1, this is just a series where we play Shadow of Mordor right in the middle of the game because why not? And we talk about D&D. We're two somewhat experienced, relatively new Dungeon Masters. New as in, we haven't been playing this game for over a decade. We've only been playing it for 2 years. But that doesn't mean we love it any less than those classic individuals that have been around since its inception. So, I have our next topic, Matt. Are you ready for the next topic?
I am ready for that.
Alright, so last episode we talked about favorite monsters to throw at our PCs as DMs or favorite monsters to fight as characters. We mainly talked about favorite monsters as DMs. Now, we're talking more from a player standpoint. Our favorite race.
Ooh.
Favorite player race. So, do you want to start this off or do you want me to start this off?
Why don't you go first on that one?
Okay.
Give me a quick second to think about it, because I got...
Seems only fair. Well,
Okay,
first of all,
so quick question.
Yes.
We are doing traditional.
As in,
like no homebrew?
from the player's handbook, hold off on the homebrew.
Okay.
It can be from player's handbook, Volodes, or any of the official Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons races. No homebrews.
Okay.
5th edition, probably, because that's the edition we're familiar with, rather than 30 or 3.5 or Pathfinder or any of that. So, that's to clarify.
Okay.
Alright. For me, this is a hard question. Because for some odd reason, I really like dwarves.
Yeah, for some fucking reason.
Always have. Lord of the Rings, Gimli's my favorite. When I played WoW, I always made dwarf paladins. They were my classics. My classic main. I don't know what it is about the dwarven race, but I really enjoy it. I think there's something about the fact that maybe they're the underdog, right? Maybe they're small, they're feisty, that they're strong despite their height impairment. But I think it also has something to do with the fact that dwarves are craftsmen, that they create really good like armor and weaponry. And I like the idea that they make stuff. And I think that's something we kind of share when we play any sort of video game. We like that crafting element of, I want to make the coolest sword. I want to make the coolest armor. And that's the dwarf. That's the dwarf race. The thing is, though, if you've noticed, Matt, I don't play many dwarf characters in D&D.
Yeah, no.
You
created a homebrew that was basically Dwarf Iron Man. That
yeah,
was cool.
and we can talk about Dwarf Iron Man homebrew later. But the character I'm playing now, right? Balasar is a dragonborn warlock. Some of my other characters, more memorable, have been elves, right? Elf sorcerer. What's his face? I can't even remember his.
Edward?
Oh yeah, Edward Fallbrow.
He was a human.
Was Edward Fallbrow a human?
Yeah, he was a
Edward
human.
Fallbrow was a human. The one I played in the bank heist game, he was an elf.
That was an elf rogue.
Elf rogue, right? For as much as I like saying I like dwarves, I don't play them very often in D&D. And I think here's the deal. I think the race clashes with the class, if that makes sense. Because and I don't actually have this as a favorite topic, what's their favorite class to play? But my answer would be wizard or sorcerer, some spellcaster. Dwarves don't lend themselves well to sorcerers or wizards. Now, I know there's this whole idea that you should play against class, but dwarves get a bonus to strength and con. It's either +2 to strength, +1 to con, and it varies per hill and mountain. But it's strength and constitution and like wisdom or something. None of those things help out with a spellcaster. In fact, strength is useless if you're a spellcaster. And I want to play a spellcaster generally, right? Balasar, warlock, human wizard, ranger. Most of these things are spellcasting abilities because honestly, I find the fighter kind of classes pretty boring. I've said it again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I find that a lot of the fighter stuff, even with superiority die and Eldritch Knight and stuff, a lot of it is, it's your turn. What do you do? I hit it with my mace. Roll damage, right?
Yeah.
That is your role as a fighter. And dwarves lend themselves well to those melee sorts of classes. They lend themselves well to fighters, maybe paladins, that sort of thing. Because their con and strength boosts, their racial bonuses help them out there. Got a message. So
I'll see if I can like edit that in post.
It's fine.
Continue.
So honestly, I think I would say that dwarf is my favorite race, but because it doesn't match up with my favorite class, I don't use it very often. So honestly, what I probably frequent more than dwarf is elf. I probably play elf the most, which is strange because you know me, I normally bash on elves quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
But I play them a lot, so I guess elf or even human.
Well, we can turn this into a two-part question. What is your most played race, and what is your favorite race?
Okay,
because
so,
it is a question that does vary. Because like some people will play more for the gaming benefit of, oh, humans get +1 at everything, or a feat. I'm gonna play a human because I want this feat. I want to start out with this feat.
And I don't think we're a big min-maxer group, but it is hard to play a sorcerer dwarf because you're not going to get any bonuses to charisma, right?
Yeah.
So
you got to rely on your die
you
rolls
have
when
to
you're making
just
the
hope
character.
that your die rolls are godlike. And if they're not, then like I get that. Now I think we have a fair balance of roleplay and combat, but if you are a sorcerer with a 15 in charisma, that's a +2. You're gonna suck. It's not gonna be fun. You know
+5
what I mean?
to your attack bonus, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I have a.
That's +4 at level 1. You
Oh
only
yeah,
have
that's
a
a good
plus.
point.
Like that's
I think
that's
level.
crap.
I usually generalize level 5, but yeah, no, I have a I have a homebrew that I made. I've told you about it, and her name is Arabella. And I love her because she's a very good roleplay character. Because she has an intelligence and wisdom of 18. So she's very good at skills checks and proficiency in roleplaying. She's great at that.
Yeah.
She sucks in combat.
Yeah.
It's not that she's bad, and I have the mobile feat for her, so she can hit something then run away.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I'll deal maximum. So I could deal a max of 24 damage in one turn.
Dang.
That's complete max.
I mean, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
But what level are you?
I'm level 6.
So it's
So
not great, and that's
yeah.
maximum.
Yeah, that's maximum because that's 3 attacks at 1d6 plus 2 for my damage.
Yeah, and you're a monk variant kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a monk
homebrew.
variant. Yeah, it's a homebrew. So that's about my max.
Well, what's your attack mod?
My attack bonus is +5.
Yeah, that's not great, especially at level 6.
No,
right?
it's not because I didn't stress my damage dealing stat as my priority stat. And while I still don't mind it,
it does make combat less.
it does
fun.
make combat a little bit less kind of. But I try to use her magic capabilities as well because it's a variant, so it does have some magical capabilities. So I do try to use those as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of to break from the just run up, hit, run up, so I can vary the combat a little, and
so it's not just a slugfest.
Because I'm with
that's
you.
Good.
Because I'm with you on the aspect that I don't like doing just a whack-a-mole.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like just going and going and going. I'm not a big fan of that. But I'm the in between. I can't be a pure spellcaster.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And dear God, this guy's face.
The poison. Hey, buddy, you kiss your mom with that mouth? Oh wait, you don't have one.
But like I have to go.
You like options.
A middle ground. I have to go a variant that's the middle ground. Yeah, I like being able to choose.
You can fight, but you don't have to always fight, and you have some spells.
I like being the variable option in the party, where I fill that role, whichever one needs to be filled.
You see, that's interesting to me, because when I think a little bit of spellcasting, a little bit of fighting and combat, I think Druid, and I don't think you've ever played a Druid.
I have not ever played a Druid. I've never thought about a Druid. Oh God. Yeah, I've never done a Druid.
He's vulnerable to stealth.
Good.
Just smash him.
Well, I won't kill him. It'll just damage him. I don't know. There's something about the fact that most Druids are always in some way invested in nature, and while I don't mind that, and it's not a bad thing, I don't know. It feels like kind of a lock to. If you're a Druid, it feels like you're kind of locked to the class, and while it's not a bad thing.
Kind of like a paladin has to be good. And
it's only been recent that the variant of the Oathbreaker one has come out, which is you've broken your oath and you're trying to redeem yourself or something like that, or the Oath of Death and stuff like that. It's only been recent that those have come out in expansions.
Yeah.
And there might be some other variants of Druid that I need to look at, but it's like, when I think of Druid, I didn't think of that, but that's also because my first Druid that I think of is the one on Critical Role, which is played by
Marisha Ray.
Yeah, Marisha Ray. Thank you. And she was never, anywhere near the combat. She was always a spellcaster.
That's true. But there is the ability to turn into elementals and things like that. Now, maybe you're right. Maybe Druids are more spellcasting. Maybe Paladins are more a mix. Warlocks can be a mix too. Balasar can hold his own in a sword fight. And if you're watching the new Critical Role, Ford, who's played by Travis Willingham, he's a good mix of sword fighting as well as spellcasting.
He took from the Xanathar's Guide.
Xanathar's Guide, yeah.
So. Which is nice because it provides a more variant of, more fighting one. Son of a bitch.
Survive your death thing, and then we continue.
But yeah. So, God, Poison Cloud. Shit. Thinking. Thought train. Derailed, thousands dead.
But yes, Travis and Ford took advantage of Xanathar's Guide and used something new and innovative. We've kind of got off track, but I think that's fine. The conversation's naturally evolved into this. But what was the original thing?
Favorite race.
Favorite race. So. Do I like dwarves? Yeah, I like dwarves a lot. But here I think is the one problem I have. They lend themselves to fighters, right? And I don't like playing fighters. But the thing I really like about dwarves is their craftsmanship. They make things, right? We talked about that.
Yeah.
And as good as Dungeons and Dragons is, it doesn't have a crafting system. So your character knowing how to smith really doesn't do you anything. Unless your DM takes a specific interest and says, hey, you're gathering materials. You're making this sword. This sword's going to be based on rolls that you make over time to craft this thing. Bada bing, bada boom. But issue with that is none of that's in the book. Crafting is useless if you follow any of the by-the-book stuff, because the only way to make weapons better is to enchant them. Only magically enchanted weapons give you bonuses, and I don't like that, which I think you would have found out in my last session, where I give it's a +3 great axe. It's not enchanted at all. It's just made by dwarven hands out of a very, very rare metal.
Yeah, so it's naturally just better.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I agree with that. I feel that there definitely should be. But again, the book does serve, and it does say that it does serve as a template. It doesn't serve as the all-around answer.
Yeah, I'm not like looking at Wizards of the Coast here and saying, fix this. I'm just saying, as someone who wants to make a dwarf, and wants the focus of that dwarf to be, he is a craftsman, and he makes the best weapons, he makes the best armor. It's really hard to kind of get the enjoyment I want out of that, because unless the DM goes out of their way and creates a lot of very specific kind of rule set for weapons crafting and makes a whole balanced system of throwing out valuable materials in the world, like mining and all this stuff that's just not in the book to begin with, that's not going to be satisfying. And I don't want to put that all on the DM, saying, hey, I want to make a dwarf who's a craftsman, you come up with all of the ways to make that interesting, So I think dwarf would be my favorite race, but the race I play the most is elf and human because they lend themselves more to the characters and styles I want to play. I took up a lot of that time. It's your turn to go. Favorite race, Matt. What have you got?
So, if I had to go favorite race, it would probably be... I've been deliberating. But if I had to pick my favorite race, it'd probably be Tiefling.
Interesting. Because I don't know if you've ever played a Tiefling.
I've played a Tiefling once or twice. I played once for Micaiah for his brother's birthday.
Okay.
And it was just a one-shot.
Yeah.
And I played a Tiefling named Parias. And it was a Blood Hunter. It was very reminiscent of Taliesin Jaffe's new character in the second campaign.
Blood Hunter's Mercer's homebrew.
Yeah, Blood Hunter is Mercer's homebrew class, which is pretty much Wizards of the Coast pretty much said, yeah, it's official, pretty much. It's just not published by Wizards of the Coast. But yeah, no, I played a Tiefling then, and then I may have played one other. But I think favorite race-wise, based on the aesthetic, the descendancies, and the overall design and concept of the Tiefling, I love the concept. I love the Tiefling. The Tiefling is descendant of demons, and that it's something that it's kind of like the Dragonborn, where through eventual breeding, it just became kind of a thing of its own. And while I don't, in my world, I say that Dragonborns are more of a mutation
rather than descendants
just,
of dragons in their human form.
Yeah, dragons and humans fucking, because I don't want to think of red rockets.
You just kicked him off the ledge. Well, I mean, the way I think of dragons and Dragonborn is really kind of Greek god-esque, right? The Greek gods came down to Earth disguised as humans. Dragons disguise themselves as humans. It's kind of the same thing. But that's for me. Anyway, continue.
But yeah, so it's kind of that thing where it's like they've kind of become their own thing, and it's just the concept of how they work and how they act and how they work in society, to me, is very unique and it's very different. And while it's kind of like they naturally, it's kind of like how we talked earlier about half-orcs and the fact that half-orcs are, kind of shown as a race that's the kind of all combat, and it's the ostracized.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, well, and Tieflings are a little bit that way too, but it's like the middle ground, Okay. If I had to think of a real-world reference, it'd probably be, not to be bad about it, but probably be like Muslim, where it's kind of a middle ground, where it's
or like people generally have this kind of, well, not generally, but some people have a fear of these individuals. I guess.
They're the race that it's like, you can stereotype them, but there's a much, because you can stereotype a half-orc, and it's like there's a 90% chance, at least when it comes to half orcs, there's a 90% chance you're right. You know,
Could be,
with
yeah.
a tiefling, it's like a tiefling could be anything. You know, a tiefling is an adaptive race, so it's very unique. And oh fuck, I just died. Fuck.
To Caragor.
Ate myself.
But
but yeah, so the tiefling itself and the sign of the concept of how the tiefling works, I love.
Mm-hmm.
The most played race, probably human.
Really?
Yeah. Because when I think about it, if I really think about it, I have played a half elf. I've played a half elf ranger, which was Geralt.
Forgot Geralt was a half elf. Oh no, I didn't. Of course, he was a half elf.
Yeah, I created
kind of pivotal to his entire arc.
Yeah, it created like a 10-year backstory. But and then Shin is a technical human. You know, he's a human blessed by something else. But he was born human in nature. And then most of my other characters that I've ever created or even thought about creating have been human. Most of my NPCs human. When I think about it, things like that.
I feel like human's just kind of a safe bet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And so it's just kind of like when I think of my most played one, it'd probably either be human or if I had to think about it, probably half elf. I don't play full elves very often because I personally am just not a big fan of the full elf. You know, I'm kind of in the same boat as you where I don't like elves.
Yeah, no.
But I take it to the point where I won't play the character.
Yeah.
You know, and Micaiah does a fantastic job of playing high elves, of being a pompous asshole.
Well, and that's the thing.
God damn.
I think, and getting off track a little bit again, but you've kind of given your answer, so just kind of going with it. I think I dislike Tolkien elves. Now, actually reading the books, and I've been reading the books for the first time recently, actually listening to them on audiobook. I dislike the elves less. In the movies, Legolas kind of made me hate elves for a while. Because he's just OP. Man, Legolas is so freaking OP. I don't think you've seen Lord of the Rings, but
no.
He just kills everything. And does it super easily, and he looks cool while he does it, and he's the best archer, and he, like, surfs on his shield, and, like, okay, it's cool, I get it, but it's just too much.
Shield surfing.
Like, okay, it's just too much, right, for me. And so, there for a while, I'm like, elves are just awful. They're just too much. Now, when you read Tolkien, or when I listen to it, or if you pay closer attention, it's the singer guy.
Yep, I'm gonna dominate
We saved him.
I'm gonna dominate him.
Oh my goodness, I love him so much.
Yep.
Be my friend. Be with me forever, singer man. But anyway, I was saying, oh yeah. Tolkien's deal with the elves is really, it makes sense. They're immortal. So if you're immortal, it makes sense that you're good at everything, because you've had 1,000 years to perfect all of your skills.
Also, his loot is his weapon.
That's awesome. But here's the thing, and I think this is important, that we need to understand. I feel like I'm talking about something legitimately serious or whatnot. It's freaking Dungeons and Dragons. But Dungeons and Dragons elves are not Tolkien elves. They are not gods. They are not this super wise and powerful race. Now, they do live a long time, right? That's part of the elves' thing. And while I think most of Dungeons and Dragons really does borrow from Tolkien and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and the Silmarillion and all that stuff, D&D elves are not perfect. And so what allows me to play them more is I think of elves really as humans, but more graceful and more focused on the arts. instead of being they're the best at everything, instead of having the elves be the best at everything, they're really lighter on their feet, right? They make better archers, better rogues, which matches with the +2 to dexterity that they get as a racial bonus, right?
Yeah.
And they're also just more uh, philosophical, I guess, right? Dwarves are the craftsmen. They make the best weapons, the best armor. But elves are the best storytellers and the best artisans. They make the best wine and the best clothing, right? It's not that they're great at everything, it's that they are elegant, and refined in certain areas, and they dominate in those areas. They're good at being the elegant upper class kind of race, and that's how I justify playing as them. Not that they're super gods like they are in Lord of the Rings, but rather that they have their specialized area. They make better rogues and archers, and that's where I kind of like them.
No, I agree with you. It's not that I don't like elves.
Mm-hmm.
I've always just thought of them as something that people like to. It's that kind of thing where it's like I grew up with Oblivion and things like that, where the elves were
Pretentious.
very,
Yeah.
there was the dark elves, which were, pretentious but dark, and then the high elves, which were pretentious times like 30.
Yeah.
And then, it got, and so I always grew up with these, so I always kind of had a hatred for them due to the fact that they're pretentious assholes.
Yeah. And I think you've played my game long enough. Now, the thing is, you guys are in the human kingdom. You're not in the elven kingdom. But the elves you ran into normally aren't pretentious. They are refined and elegant and normally upper class. But I try not to make them just pretentious a-holes, But I think your interpretation is just the thing is there's no universal D&D. What makes a race is in your own head,
Yeah.
So our whole long discussion aside, what did we finally come to? I like dwarves, but I don't play them because they don't match with the classes I like to play.
Your favorite and your
Is
most played.
my favorite dwarves. Most played elves. And I like dwarves, but because of the whole craftsman element and that not really being a key part of D&D, I don't play it. But elves lend themselves better to spellcasters as well as archers and other classes that I kind of like to mess around with there.
And I like the concept as a favorite. Tieflings. I love how they look. I love how they act. I love how they interact with society and how they're different, unique. But it's kind of that same thing where it comes to how I create my characters and how I create a lot of my other how my NPCs work and how other things work. They usually tend to end up being human or half elf or something more in that variant. And it's how we create them. And I like to try and make sure I create a tiefling of some kind or some other kind of excuse me, God, some other kind of major just off-brand thing. And I like being a little bit more freeform while you're a little bit more traditional. So it's a little bit different when it comes to how we interpret each other's actions and things like that. And so, but yeah, so
Nice. Well, and I think you touched on it again. I'm very traditional. You're a little bit more outside the box, which I think Tiefling's probably the most outside the box race there is. While elves and dwarves, which are my favorite and top played race, are once again very classic fantasy races. But anyway, this
classes
is
down too, by the way.
Favorite class.
Yeah, for what we should do.
I mean, do we want to do that next episode?
Yeah, we can do that
next time on Gamers Eden.
Yeah, we can do that next time.
Stay tuned, guys. We'll see you there.
I gotta run away.